The frozen signal. The wind howled across the frozen wasteland of Kepler 79c, an ice-covered planet that humans had barely begun to explore. Captain Alina Drake adjusted her thermal suit as she stared out over the endless plains of shimmering white. Her team had been out here for 3 weeks, cataloging the terrain and searching for any sign of life, or at least something interesting enough to justify the expense of their expedition. So far, the only thing they'd found was cold, silence, and more cold. "Captain, you need to see this," said Marcus, the team's tech specialist. He stood hunched over a small console inside the mobile habitat unit, his face lit up by a screen. Alina stepped inside, the warmth of the heaters instantly fogging her visor. "What is it?" Marcus pointed at the screen. "A signal. It's faint, but it's consistent, and it's not natural." Alina frowned. "A signal. Out here." She leaned closer to the screen. The data showed a rhythmic pulse, almost like a heartbeat. It was coming from beneath the ice, nearly a mile down. "Could it be interference?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "No way. It's too regular. Whatever's down there, it's transmitting on a frequency we can pick up." Dr. Naomi Vance, the team's biologist, joined them, her eyebrows raised in interest. "A signal like this could mean life," she said, "or at least something that was alive at some point." Alina straightened. Life. That was what every mission hoped to find. She glanced at the rest of the team, who had gathered around. There were 6 of them in total, all experienced explorers. If anyone could get to the source of the signal, it was them. "How deep is it?" Alina asked. "Just under a mile," Marcus replied. "The ice gets denser the further down you go, but our equipment can handle it." The room fell silent as the team processed the enormity of what they might have found. A signal buried under a mile of ice. It could be ancient technology, an alien species in stasis, or something completely beyond their understanding. "Let's gear up," Alina said finally. "We'll start drilling at first light." The next morning, the team stood around the drilling site. The machine, a towering rig designed to cut through thick ice, roared to life, sending vibrations through the ground. As the drill burrowed deeper, the team monitored the signal. "It's getting stronger," Marcus said, his voice crackling over the comms. Alina watched the readouts on her handheld device. The signal's rhythm was steady, almost hypnotic. It pulsed like a heartbeat, but with an unnatural precision. "Any idea what's down there?" asked Carter, the team's engineer. "Your guess is as good as mine," Alina replied. "But whatever it is, it's been waiting a long time to be found." The hours dragged on as the drill worked its way through the ice. The air grew colder, and the wind outside picked up, rattling the habitat unit. "Something's not right," Naomi said, her breath visible even inside her heated helmet. "The temperature is dropping faster than it should." Marcus checked the readings. "She's right. It's almost like the ice is pulling the heat away." Alina frowned. "Stay focused. We're too close to turn back now." As the drill reached the final layers of ice, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The team staggered, grabbing onto nearby equipment to steady themselves. "What was that?" Carter asked, his voice tense. "Just a tremor," Alina said, though her heart was racing. "Keep going." The drill finally broke through into an empty chamber. A wave of freezing air rushed up, fogging the team's visors. "Lower the cameras," Alina ordered. A small camera was lowered into the hole, its light cutting through the darkness. What they saw on the monitor took their breath away. The chamber below was vast, with walls of crystal-clear ice that sparkled like diamonds. In the center was a figure encased in ice, a humanoid shape, taller than any human, with silvery skin and long flowing hair. "It's a person," Naomi whispered. "No," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "Not a person. Not human." The figure's eyes were closed, but even through the ice, they seemed to glow faintly. Around the figure, strange markings were etched into the ice, symbols that none of them could recognize. Alina's mind raced. This was it. Proof of intelligent life beyond Earth. But what was it doing here? "Captain," Marcus said, his voice barely audible. "The signal. It's coming from her." Alina stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. The signal, the tremors, the unnatural cold, it was all connected to this figure. "We need to get her out," Naomi said urgently. "She's alive, or at least she could be." Alina hesitated. Freeing her could be dangerous. They didn't know what she was, or why she was here. But leaving her behind felt unthinkable. "Prepare the thawing equipment," Alina said finally. "We're bringing her up." As the team scrambled to set up the equipment, the ground trembled again, harder this time. A low, echoing sound rose from the depths of the ice, like a distant growl. Alina's stomach churned. They had found something incredible. But they weren't alone. The discovery, the rhythmic pulse of the signal hadn't stopped since they first detected it, a haunting sound that seemed to seep into their minds. Even in the warmth of the habitat unit, the team felt an unnatural chill, like the ice was alive and pressing against their very souls. By the time the drill breached the final layer, the entire team was tense. Alina stood at the edge of the freshly drilled shaft, staring into the abyss below. Steam from the drill's heat swirled into the cold air, creating ghostly shapes that twisted in the wind. "Cameras ready," Marcus said, lowering the cable-mounted device into the hole. The feed appeared on their monitors, a slow descent into the darkness. The ice walls reflected the camera's light in strange, fractured patterns, like veins glowing with some inner life. "This ice is odd," Naomi murmured, her eyes fixed on the screen. "It's not just ice. Look at the structure. It's layered, almost deliberate." "Nature can be pretty deliberate," Carter quipped, but his voice lacked confidence. As the camera descended further, the feed suddenly flickered, then cleared. The silence in the room grew heavy as the chamber below came into view. It was enormous, a cavern of perfect symmetry that stretched out of sight. The walls shimmered with an unnatural glow, casting faint light over the floor below. But it wasn't the size or the glow that caught their attention. It was the figure, suspended in the center of the chamber, encased in what appeared to be solid ice, was a humanoid being. She, or it, had silver-toned skin that seemed to sparkle faintly, even through the frozen prison. Her face was serene, her eyes closed as if in deep sleep. Long, flowing hair, the color of polished steel, was frozen mid-motion, as if she had been caught in the act of falling. "Holy," Carter's voice trailed off. "Is it alive?" Naomi whispered. The rhythmic pulse of the signal was louder now, almost deafening through their monitors. It didn't just sound like a heartbeat. It felt like one, vibrating through their bones. "She's the source," Marcus said, his hands trembling slightly on the controls. "The signal's coming from her." Alina's gaze was locked on the figure. Something about her felt wrong. Not dangerous, necessarily, but unnatural in a way that made her stomach twist. "Look at the markings," Naomi said, pointing to the screen. Around the frozen figure, symbols were etched into the ice. They weren't random. They were precise, purposeful, forming a ring of intricate patterns. "What do they mean?" Carter asked, leaning closer. "Protection, maybe? Or a warning?" Marcus suggested. Alina shook her head. "We won't know until we get down there." "Carter, prepare the winch." Naomi, grab the thermal tools. "We're going to thaw her out." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Marcus asked hesitantly. "We don't know what she is, or what else could be down there." "She's been down there long enough," Alina said, her voice firm. "We didn't come all this way to leave her frozen in a tomb. Whatever this is, it's beyond anything we've ever seen. We owe it to humanity to find out." The descent into the chamber was slow and nerve-wracking. Carter and Alina were the first to go down, their suits' heating systems working overtime against the oppressive cold. The air grew heavier as they descended, every breath feeling like it took twice the effort. When they reached the bottom, Alina's boots crunched against the ice-covered floor. She turned her flashlight toward the figure. In person, it was even more surreal. The glow of her skin, the almost peaceful expression, the way her frozen form seemed to exude a quiet, commanding presence, it was overwhelming. Naomi's voice crackled over the comms, her temperatures dangerously low. If she's alive, we'll need to act fast to revive her. Carter set up the thermal equipment while Alina inspected the markings around the ice. Up close, they seemed to pulse faintly, like they were alive. She reached out to touch one but pulled back at the last second, her instincts screaming against it. "She doesn't look like she's been here for a few years," Carter said, breaking the silence. "More like centuries, maybe millennia." "She's waiting for something," Alina murmured, though she wasn't sure where the thought had come from. The moment the thermal tools activated, the pulse of the signal grew faster, more insistent. The ice began to crack, tiny fissures spreading out like spiderwebs. "Slow it down," Alina ordered, her voice tight. "It's not me," Carter said. "The ice is reacting on its own." The cracks widened, and a sudden burst of cold air whooshed out, making both of them stagger back. The figure's eyes snapped open. They glowed, bright, piercing, and unearthly. Before anyone could react, a voice filled the chamber, soft but commanding. "They are coming." Alina froze. The figure's lips hadn't moved, yet the voice was clear, echoing in her head. "Who's coming?" she managed to ask aloud. The figure didn't answer. Instead, the chamber trembled violently, and a low guttural sound rose from the depths of the ice. Something else was waking up, rescuing the unknown. The alien woman's glowing eyes burned into Alina's mind, even after the ice had fully cracked away. She stood motionless in the center of the chamber, her body shimmering faintly under the dull glow of the ice walls. Steam curled around her like a veil, rising from the now melting ice. "She's breathing," Naomi whispered through the comms. Her voice trembled, caught between awe and fear. Alina took a cautious step forward, her boots crunching softly on the frost-covered ground. The alien woman's chest rose and fell with shallow, deliberate breaths, her silver skin glistening, as though it absorbed light itself. Yet the temperature in the chamber plummeted with every second. "She's freezing the air around her," Carter said, adjusting the sensors on his wrist. "How is she even alive?" The alien woman's knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the icy floor, the sound echoing in the cavern. Her lips parted, and a faint ghostly voice filled the space, not through their comms, but directly into their heads. "Warmth, please." Alina knelt beside her without hesitation, though the freezing cold radiating from the woman's body numbed her hands through her gloves. "We're here to help," she said softly, unsure if the woman could even understand her. As if in response, the alien's glowing eyes flickered weakly, and her head tilted toward Alina. Her skin was colder than the ice, a chill that bit through Alina's protective suit like daggers. "She won't survive down here," Naomi said, her voice sharp now. "Her vitals, if these readings are accurate, are dangerously low. We need to get her back to the habitat. Fast. And risk whatever's chasing her catching up to us," Carter asked. "This could be suicide." Alina's jaw tightened. She glanced over her shoulder at the cracked walls of the chamber. The strange symbols etched into the ice seemed dimmer now, fading with each passing moment. "That thing," she said. Marcus chimed in over the comms. "They're coming." "Who's they?" Before anyone could answer, the chamber trembled again, this time with more force. A deep, guttural roar echoed from the depths of the ice, a sound so primal and alien it made the hair on Alina's neck stand on end. "We don't have time to argue," Alina snapped. Carter grabbed the stretcher. "Marcus, prep the winch. We're taking her up now." The ascent was agonizingly slow. The alien woman lay motionless on the stretcher, her body radiating an unnatural cold that frosted over the equipment. Alina stayed by her side, holding one of the alien's hands in her gloved one. Even through the thick material, It felt like she was clutching a block of pure ice. "She's stable for now, but her temperature keeps dropping," Naomi reported from above. "If we don't warm her up soon, she won't make it." As they neared the surface, the winch began to strain. Alina looked down at the ice below, which now shimmered with ominous cracks. The roaring sound from earlier was louder now, reverberating through the ground. "Carter, speed it up," Alina shouted. "I'm trying." Carter grunted, his fingers flying over the controls. Suddenly, a massive crack split the chamber below, and a dark, writhing mass began to emerge. It moved like smoke, twisting and shifting, but its shape was anything but natural. It was a swarm of biomechanical tendrils, each glowing faintly with a sickly green light. "They're here," Marcus yelled through the comms. Alina grabbed her sidearm and fired into the writhing swarm, the shots echoing in the narrow shaft. The bullets sparked harmlessly off the tendrils, which swirled upward, closing the distance quickly. "Get us out of here now," Alina barked. The winch groaned as it sped up, the platform jerking and swaying under the strain. The alien woman's head tilted slightly, her glowing eyes fluttering open again. She looked up at Alina, her lips moving faintly. "Warmth. They fear warmth." Alina's mind raced. She grabbed a portable heating unit from her belt and switched it to its highest setting. A wave of warmth washed over the stretcher, and the alien woman visibly relaxed, her breathing steadying. The swarm screeched and recoiled as the heat reached them, shrinking back into the cracks in the ice. "They're retreating," Carter shouted. "Not for long," Alina replied. "Let's move." When they finally reached the surface, the team wasted no time. The alien woman was rushed into the habitat unit, where Naomi hooked her up to a portable heater. Her silvery skin began to lose its frost, but she remained unconscious. Alina sat beside her, exhaustion creeping in. The others watched from a distance, their faces pale with fear and confusion. "Captain," Marcus said quietly, "I don't think we're dealing with just one alien. Whatever's down there, it's alive, and it knows we're here." Alina looked at the alien woman, her glowing eyes now closed in a semblance of peace. The faint signal they had followed was gone, replaced by a deafening silence. "She said they fear warmth," Alina murmured. "And whatever they are, they're not done with us yet." The wind outside howled like a warning, rattling the walls of the habitat. The ice, it seemed, had secrets it wasn't ready to let go of. The chase begins. The storm outside the habitat unit had grown ferocious, battering the walls with ice-laden winds. Alina stared out of the frosted window, her heart pounding. The alien woman lay in the medical pod behind her, bathed in the warm glow of heaters. She looked fragile, almost human, but the faint glow of her skin reminded everyone how otherworldly she truly was. "We need to leave this planet now," Marcus said, pacing by the control console. His voice was tight with panic. "Whatever that thing was down there, it's coming for us." "We don't know that," Naomi countered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. "Maybe the heat scared it off for good." "It didn't retreat," Carter interjected, his tone grim. "It regrouped. I could feel it, watching us." Alina turned to face them, her expression firm. "Enough. We're not running blind. Prep the ship for departure." Marcus scanned for movement outside. "I want to know what we're up against before we launch." Marcus hesitated but nodded, turning back to his console. The rest of the team scattered, their tension palpable as they readied the ship. An hour later, Marcus froze at his station. "Captain," he whispered, his face pale, "you need to see this." Alina crossed the room quickly, leaning over his shoulder to look at the screen. The radar showed dozens of blips, all converging on their location. "They're fast," Marcus said, his hands trembling as he adjusted the settings. "And they're closing in." Alina's stomach dropped. "How long do we have?" 10 minutes. Maybe less." She straightened and barked orders into her comms. "Everyone, gear up. We're leaving. Now." The team scrambled into the ship, the hum of the engines coming to life beneath their feet. The alien woman had been carefully moved into a secure pod in the medbay, her vitals steady but faint. Elena took her place in the cockpit as Carter powered up the thrusters. The storm outside was worse than ever, snow and ice whipping across the windshield like an impenetrable curtain. Lifting off in 3, 2, Carter's voice trailed off as the ship lurched violently. "What was that?" Naomi asked, gripping the back of her seat. Carter checked the monitors. "Something's on the landing gear." A lot of somethings. Before Elena could respond, a deafening screech reverberated through the ship. The sound was both mechanical and organic, like metal being torn apart by claws. "They're here," Marcus whispered. The creatures swarmed the ship, their biomechanical bodies writhing as they clung to the hull. Through the external cameras, Elena could see their glowing tendrils wrapping around the engines, trying to pierce the metal. "They're targeting the heat," she realized aloud. "Captain, if they breach the engines," Carter started, but Elena cut him off. "Divert power to the shields. We need to shake them off." The ship trembled as Carter activated the shields, a burst of energy rippling across the hull. The creatures shrieked and recoiled, but only for a moment. They adapted quickly, their tendrils reforming to bypass the shield's energy field. "They're learning," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "They're not just reacting. They're strategizing. Then we outsmart them," Elena replied. "Naomi, open the external vents and flood the area with coolant. It's not as hot as the engines, but it'll buy us time." Naomi hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding. A hissing sound filled the ship as coolant vented into the storm. The creatures paused, their glowing forms flickering as the sudden cold disrupted their movements. "It's working," Carter shouted, pulling the ship into a steep ascent. For a brief moment, relief washed over the crew as the creatures began to drop away, their bodies unable to cling to the icy surface. But then the ship jolted violently, and alarms blared across the console. "They've breached the cargo hold," Marcus yelled. Elena grabbed her rifle and rushed to the cargo bay. Naomi closed behind. The moment the doors slid open, they were met with chaos. Tendrils snaked across the walls, tearing through crates and equipment. The air was frigid, but the creatures moved with terrifying speed, their glowing cores pulsing like hearts. "Focus on the cores," Elena shouted, firing a burst of energy rounds at the nearest creature. The shots hit their mark, and the tendrils dissolved into ash. Naomi followed suit, her hand steady despite the fear in her eyes. The creatures were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. "Fall back," Elena ordered, retreating toward the medbay. As they entered, the alien woman stirred in her pod. Her glowing eyes fluttered open, and she sat up weakly, her gaze locking onto Elena. "They consume heat," she said, her voice echoing faintly in their minds. "But they cannot survive within it." "What does that mean?" Elena asked, still firing at the advancing swarm. The woman raised a trembling hand, her silver skin faintly glowing. "I can help, if you trust me." Elena hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Do it." The woman's body began to radiate intense heat, filling the room with an almost unbearable warmth. The creatures shrieked and recoiled, their tendrils disintegrating as they came too close. "They're retreating," Naomi exclaimed, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief. The alien woman collapsed back into the pod, her glow fading. Elena turned to the others, her expression grim. "This was just the first wave," she said. "Whatever's out there, it won't stop until it takes everything warm." The ship roared into the sky, leaving the icy wasteland behind. But in her gut, Elena knew the real fight had only just begun. Unveiling her secrets, the alien woman lay still in the medbay, her silvery skin dim and lifeless under the glow of the heaters. Elena watched her chest rise and fall in shallow breaths, her mind racing. They'd barely escaped the creatures on the ice planet, but the damage to the ship was severe. The engines sputtered as Carter fought to keep them in orbit, and the power reserves were rapidly depleting. "She saved us," Naomi said softly, standing beside Alina. "If she hadn't, we wouldn't be here." "But at what cost?" Marcus chimed in over the comms. "She's not human, Captain. Whatever she is, those things were hunting her, and now they're hunting us. She's dangerous." "Maybe," Alina replied, her voice sharp. "But without her, we'd be dead. If she has answers, we need to hear them." Naomi hesitated. Her vitals are stabilizing. "If she wakes up, she might be able to tell us why they're after her." As if on cue, the alien woman stirred. Her glowing eyes opened slowly, scanning the room before settling on Alina. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice soft but resonating in their minds. Alina crouched beside the pod, her tone firm but not unkind. "Who's coming? What are those things? And why are they after you?" The alien's gaze flickered with something: pain, fear, and a deep sadness that made Alina's stomach tighten. "They are called the Nihari. They are the end of warmth, of life." The team gathered in the medbay, hanging on the woman's every word. Her voice filled the space, weaving a tale that felt too surreal to believe. "They were created," she began, "by my people, long ago. Machines designed to harness the energy of dying stars, to save our world from an ice age. But we underestimated them. They grew, evolved, and turned on us. They consume heat, light, and life itself. We call them the Nihari, the endless cold." Marcus crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "If they're so powerful, how are you still alive?" The woman's glowing eyes met his, unblinking. "I was their prisoner. My people trapped me within the ice as a beacon, a lure to keep the Nihari contained. For millennia, I slept, keeping them dormant, until you woke me." The weight of her words hung heavy in the room. Naomi's face paled, and even Carter looked shaken. "So, they're free because of us?" Naomi asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman nodded. "You shattered the seal. Now they will spread, consuming all warmth in their path." Alina clenched her fists, anger bubbling in her chest. "Why didn't you warn us? Why didn't you stop us?" "I tried," the woman said, her voice trembling. "But I was weak, frozen. I could not reach you in time." Carter slammed his fist against the wall. "So what now? We're just supposed to wait for them to find us again. They nearly tore the ship apart." "There is a way," the woman said, sitting up slightly in her pod. "But it will require sacrifice." Alina's eyes narrowed. "What kind of sacrifice?" The woman hesitated. "The Nihari cannot adapt to extreme heat quickly. If we lure them into a concentrated thermal field, strong enough to overwhelm their systems, we can destroy them. But," she looked down, her glowing eyes dimming, "to create such a field, you would need a power source far beyond what your ship can generate." "The core," Carter said immediately. "The ship's reactor." Alina's stomach sank. "If we overload the reactor, we lose the ship. We lose everything." "Not everything," the woman corrected. "If I merge with your systems, I can amplify the reactor's output, focusing the energy into a directed blast. It will destroy the Nihari. And me." The room fell silent. Naomi stepped forward, her voice soft. "You'd sacrifice yourself. Why?" The woman's eyes met hers, glowing brighter. "Because my people created this. Because it is my burden to end it. And because your kind still has hope." Alina turned away, pacing the room. Every instinct told her to reject the plan. It was too dangerous, too final. But deep down, she knew there was no other choice. The Nihari wouldn't stop until they had consumed everything. "Captain," Marcus said hesitantly, "if she's right, this could work. But we need to act fast. They'll find us soon." Alina exhaled slowly, her decision made. Carter prepped the reactor for overload. Marcus set a course for the Nihari swarm. If we're doing this, we're doing it now. The alien woman smiled faintly, her glow flickering. You are brave, humans. Perhaps braver than my people ever were. Elena looked her in the eye. If we're doing this, you're not going alone. We'll make sure the Nahari never hurt anyone else again. The ship groaned as the engines powered up, the distant stars shimmering against the endless void. Somewhere out there, the Nahari were waiting, their hunger growing, and humanity would face them head-on. The final stand. The ship plunged into the black void of space, engines roaring at maximum thrust. Ahead, the Nahari swarm loomed like a living storm, a writhing mass of biomechanical tendrils glowing with their sickly green energy. The alien woman sat upright in the medbay, her silvery skin faintly shimmering. Her expression was calm, but her glowing eyes betrayed the weight of her burden. Elena stood in the cockpit, her fingers gripping the edge of the console. Her team was silent, the tension thick enough to choke on. "How close are we to the swarm?" she asked, her voice sharp. Marcus, his face pale and sweating, replied, 5 minutes. They've noticed us. They're changing formation, preparing to intercept. They're not running anymore, Carter muttered, hands steady on the controls. They know we're here. Elena turned to Naomi, who was standing near the medbay door. Is she ready? Naomi hesitated, then nodded. She says she'll need access to the reactor in the next 2 minutes. The energy surge, it's going to push the ship to its limits. Elena exhaled slowly. We've already crossed that line. As the ship hurtled toward the Nahari, the alien woman stood and made her way to the reactor room. Her movements were slow, deliberate, as if every step carried the weight of an eternity. Naomi followed close behind, her hands trembling as she clutched a tablet to monitor the process. When they reached the reactor, the woman placed her hands on the metal housing. A soft glow spread from her palms, and the hum of the ship's core deepened into a resonant vibration. The core is strong, the woman said softly, but it will not be enough. I must give it more. Naomi frowned. More. What does that mean? The woman turned her glowing eyes toward Naomi. It means I will become part of it. My energy, my life force, it will fuel the blast. Naomi stepped back, her breath catching in her throat. You'll die. The woman gave a faint smile. I have been dead for centuries. This is merely completing the circle. Back in the cockpit, Marcus's voice broke the silence. Captain, they're closing in. 3 minutes to impact. Elena nodded, her jaw tightening. Carter, keep us steady. Marcus, monitor the shields. I don't want any surprises before we reach them. She opened the comms to the reactor room. Naomi, is she ready? There was a pause before Naomi's voice came through, shaky but determined. She's in position. The core's charging beyond its normal capacity. I don't know how long it'll hold. Then let's not waste time, Elena said, her voice cold and resolute. The ship shuddered violently as it entered the edge of the Nahari swarm. Tendrils lashed out, striking the shields with deafening force. Sparks flew from the consoles, and alarms blared throughout the ship. They're trying to break through. Marcus yelled. Hold them off. Elena barked. Naomi, we need that core ready now. In the reactor room, the alien woman's glow intensified, bathing the space in brilliant light. The core pulsed in response, its energy levels climbing far beyond what should have been possible. Captain, Naomi's voice crackled over the comms. We're at full charge, but we've only got one shot at this. Understood, Elena replied. Carter, take us straight into the heart of the swarm. Carter glanced at her, his face grim. That's suicide. I know, Elena said quietly. But if we don't, everyone else dies anyway. Do it. The ship surged forward, plowing through the Nahari tendrils. The creatures screeched and writhed, their glowing cores flickering as they tried to adapt to the ship's heat output. In the reactor room, the alien woman's voice echoed in Naomi's mind. It is time. The woman stepped into the reactor chamber, her body dissolving into pure light as she merged with the core. The ship trembled violently, and a deafening hum filled the air as the reactor's energy spiked to unimaginable levels. "Alina," Marcus shouted, "the core's about to blow. Brace yourselves." Alina yelled. A blinding explosion of light erupted from the ship, expanding outward in a massive wave of searing heat. The Nihari screamed, their biomechanical forms disintegrating instantly as the thermal blast consumed them. The swarm evaporated in moments, leaving nothing but silence and empty space in its wake. When the light faded, the ship was eerily still. Systems flickered back online, and the hum of the engines returned, though faint and strained. "Alina." Naomi's voice came over the comms, soft and broken. "She's gone." Alina closed her eyes, her hands trembling as she gripped the console. "She saved us. All of us." The ship limped away from the battlefield, battered but alive. The crew sat in silence, the weight of what they'd just witnessed sinking in. In the quiet of the medbay, Alina stared out of the window at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the Nihari had been stopped, for now. But the cost had been immeasurable. "She called us brave," Alina murmured to herself, but she was the bravest of all. And as the ship drifted into the unknown, Alina knew they had been given a second chance, a chance to protect the warmth that made them human, and to honor the one who had given everything to preserve it. A new mission. The quiet hum of the ship's systems was a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle they had just survived. The Nihari swarm was gone, their writhing tendrils obliterated in the blinding wave of thermal energy. But the cost of victory weighed heavily on everyone aboard. Alina sat in the cockpit, staring at the empty expanse of space through the cracked windshield. The alien woman was gone, her essence consumed by the reactor to power the final blast. Yet the faint warmth lingering in the ship felt like a reminder of her sacrifice, a flicker of life in the cold void. "Captain," Marcus's voice came through the comms, hesitant. "You should come to the bridge. There's something you need to see." Alina pushed herself up, her legs heavy with exhaustion. "What now?" she muttered under her breath, making her way through the narrow corridors. When she entered the bridge, Marcus pointed to the main monitor. "This started coming through a few minutes ago." The screen displayed a faint signal, different from the one they had followed on the ice planet. It pulsed with a softer rhythm, almost melodic, and its source was far beyond the nearest star system. "That's not random," Naomi said, standing beside Marcus. Her voice was tinged with both curiosity and unease. "Is it another distress call?" Alina asked, narrowing her eyes. Marcus shook his head. "No, it's a beacon. It's broadcasting coordinates." "Coordinates to what?" Carter asked, leaning against the console, his face pale from their ordeal. "That's the thing," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "It's not just a random location. It's a star map, and it's not from us." Alina stared at the monitor, her mind racing. The alien woman's last moments replayed in her head, her glowing eyes, the calm determination in her voice as she said, "Your kind still has hope." "This can't be a coincidence," Alina said finally. She knew about this. "You think she left this for us?" Naomi asked, her brows furrowed. Alina nodded. "It's a trail. She didn't just stop the Nihari. She gave us a way forward." The crew gathered in the briefing room, their faces marked by exhaustion, but tinged with a flicker of hope. The star map filled the holographic display in the center of the table, its glowing lines weaving through uncharted sectors of space. "What are we looking at?" Carter asked, crossing his arms. "It's a route," Marcus explained. "The beacon is pointing us toward a specific system, but it's not a straight line. There are stops along the way. Checkpoints, maybe. Or warnings," Naomi added grimly. Alina leaned forward, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "Whatever this map leads to, it's important. She wouldn't have gone through all this just to give us a dead end." But what if it's another trap? Marcus asked. What if there's more out there like the Nahari? Alina met his gaze, her voice steady. Then we face it. We've come too far to turn back now. The ship limped toward the first set of coordinates, the crew working tirelessly to repair the damage from the battle. Every system felt fragile, held together by sheer will and desperation. But as they neared the waypoint, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. A massive structure floating in the void. What is that? Carter asked, his voice tinged with awe. The structure was unlike anything they'd ever seen, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. It was ancient, yet it pulsed with life, as if it had been waiting for them. Looks like a waypoint, Marcus said, scanning the structure. There's an entry point, some kind of docking station. Alina nodded. Bring us in. Inside the structure, the air was warm and still. The walls glowed faintly, casting shifting patterns of light across the floor. The crew moved cautiously, their weapons drawn, but no threats emerged. In the center of the chamber, a pedestal stood, and on it, a crystalline orb pulsed softly. Naomi approached it carefully, her eyes wide with wonder. It's alive, she whispered. The orb began to emit a series of tones, and suddenly, the room was filled with images, a vision of a vast, thriving civilization, its people silver-skinned and glowing like the alien woman they had met. The vision shifted to show the Nahari, their tendrils consuming everything in their path. Finally, it ended with a symbol, a starburst surrounded by concentric rings. What does it mean? Carter asked, his voice hushed. Alina stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the orb. It's a message, she said softly. Her people left this behind. They knew the Nahari would come again, so they created a path, a way to fight back. As the crew left the structure, the star map on their ship updated with new coordinates, the beacon signal stronger than ever. This isn't over, Marcus said, staring at the map. No, Alina replied, her voice steady. It's just the beginning. The ship's engines roared to life, and they set course for the next waypoint, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. Humanity had faced the darkness and survived. Now they would follow the light, wherever it led, to uncover the truth and ensure the Nahari threat was stopped for good. And in the quiet hum of the ship, Alina felt the alien woman's warmth linger, a silent reminder of the sacrifice that made their journey possible.